I'm making an obby from scratch on Hytopia and showing you every step of the process along the way, from before the first line of code is ever written all the way through to the final published game. If you don't know me, my name is Ash, and in this first video of our 5-part tutorial series, we are diving into planning and setup, laying the groundwork so that the rest of the project goes smoothly. This video is sponsored by Hytopia, a modern games platform where you can create your own link-shareable, massively multiplayer online blocky games that will work on any browser or device. Before going any further in this video, you're going to want to make sure that you have installed the Hytopia SDK on your machine. So if you haven't done that yet, be sure to follow the Getting Started guide on this channel, which I will link above and in the description. And once you have everything installed, you can follow along as I make an obby on Hytopia. So like I said, in this first video, we are covering planning and setup, which may sound a little bit boring, but I can tell you from experience that doing this prep work now will save you hours of work later. So with all of that said, let's get started. The first thing I recommend doing before starting any new project is planning on paper. And I say paper, but I don't actually plan on paper. I usually do it on my computer, but you could technically do it on paper. The point being that it needs to be planning that you're doing before you ever start coding. For me, this usually starts with a brain dump that I eventually organize into some sort of useful structure that'll help me with the rest of the planning phase. No matter how you choose to do this step, just make sure you have some sort of typed up summary at some point because we will be using that later on in the video. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that right now, and then when I'm done, we'll come back and talk about it. Okay, so I finished my brain dump. This is my Notion card for it. The name of this game is going to be Volcano Dash, and if you don't know, in the very first Hytopia game jam, I made the game Volcano Dash, and it was the very first thing I've ever made. There's a lot of stuff that I want to change about it. I've been meaning to update it, so I figured since it's on such an old version of the SDK, why not, instead of updating that old one, I'll just make a completely new one from scratch. And make a tutorial series out of it. So that's kind of how this came about. So the name of the game is going to be Volcano Dash, and just a quick brain dump here that I did. The setting is inside of an active volcano. The game type is an obby, and some general notes are the player will spawn in a lobby when they join the game, and they will have a few different obby style game modes. Super simple one that is just checkpoints and a timer, and then a lava rising type game mode. And then I kind of go into a little more detail about each of the game modes. So the super simple obby is just the goal is to reach the end. There will be checkpoints. There will be an untimed mode where when you reach the end, you get a crown. And there will be a timer mode where you'll have a leaderboard and also personal best times that are tracked. And then in the lava rising obby game mode, the goal is to collect the most energy. There will be a rising lava entity. There'll be energy shards that have different values. You will collect energy at a fixed rate. There will be energy clusters that increase the rate, supercharged stations, which are multipliers, and there will be some sort of second chance mechanism to where if you end up in the lava, there's some sort of way to get out and keep going. We'll track the personal best for energy collection and also have a leaderboard that we track as well. So that is just my initial brain dump for this game. So we're going to set this aside for now, and we're going to go ahead and start our new Hytopia project. So you may remember from the Getting Started guide, every Hytopia project needs its own root folder. So I'm going to go ahead and create one now for this game. I'm going to go to the place on my computer where I keep all of my Hytopia games, and I'm going to create a new folder that I'm going to call Volcano Dash. And then we're going to open this folder inside of Cursor. So I'm going to go to Cursor. I'm going to go to File, Open Folder. And then I'm going to go to that Volcano Dash folder that I just made, and I'm going to hit Select Folder, and it's going to open it up. So you can see right here it says Volcano Dash. This is the empty folder that we just made. And then I'm going to go to Terminal, New Terminal, and I'm going to type in Hytopia init, just like we did in the Getting Started guide. Okay, and then it says, would you like to initialize the Hytopia MCP for this project? Y/N, we're going to say Y for yes and hit enter. And it's asking us what our code editor is. We're using Cursor, so we're going to press 1 and hit enter. And it says new MCP server detected. We're going to enable that. And with that, we have our new Hytopia project initialized. So I'm going to type in Hytopia start, which will start our server. And it says the server is running. And if you scroll up, if you don't have this link saved already, you can scroll up and find it here. And then you can just go to that link in a browser. And you might get this pop-up error that pops up every once in a while. All you have to do is follow the instructions, which is to copy this little URL. We're going to go here to a new tab, type it in. I'm going to go to advanced, and I'm going to say continue to localhost. Basically, I need to tell my computer that this is safe. All right, so we told it it was okay. Now we can go back to Hytopia, and now you can see that we're in the game. And your player will spawn with random cosmetics. This is so that you can test if there's anything that you need to hide that won't be hidden by default when the player has their own cosmetics from the marketplace in the game. Okay, so now that our project is initialized and our server is running, the very next step I'm going to do is set up a GitHub repository for our project. If you don't know what GitHub is, it is a cloud service based on Git, which allows you to track changes and revert to old versions of your code. Having this set up is basically like a fail-safe for your project, to where if as you're working, something goes wrong, something breaks, you can revert back to an older version of your code that was working so that you can figure out kind of what went wrong along the way. So you're going to want to go to github.com. And once you're there, you're going to want to create an account if you don't already have one. I do have one, so I'm just going to sign in. And now that I'm signed in, I'm going to go back into Cursor. And in Cursor, in this top left-hand side, you see these icons at the top. This first one is the icon for all your folders and files. The third one, the one with the 3 circles and the lines, this is your version control tab. So I'm going to click on this. And you see these 2 buttons. One is initialize repository and one is publish to GitHub. I'm going to start by just initializing a repository. And it's saying, the Git repository has too many active changes. Would you like to add node modules to a .gitignore? And I'm going to say yes. And what this has done is, now if we go back to our files, we have this new file called gitignore. And when you click on it, you can see that it's listed node modules in that file. And this is basically telling Git to ignore this folder. The reason why we want to do this is this folder is like a Hytopia specific folder. We're not going to be making any changes to anything in this folder, so we don't need to have version control for that. So we don't need to spend the time uploading all of those things into GitHub. So we're ignoring that. All right, going back to the version control tab, you can see now we've got this staging area. And if I hit this plus button, it's going to stage all of the changes. Now, in this case, it's going to stage all of our files because we don't have any files in our GitHub yet, right? So I'm going to press the plus to stage them all. And it took a second, but we've got all these A's here now. And then I need to give it a message. So I'm just going to say initial commit. And I'm going to say commit. Okay, so now we've committed these changes and we see this down here, but this has only saved it locally. Now we want to publish the branch. We want to push it to the GitHub website. So I'm going to hit publish branch. And when I do this, it's going to prompt me to log into my GitHub. So I'm going to say allow. And then it's going to give us an activation code. So I'm going to say copy and continue to GitHub. So now I've got that code copied. And this is why we signed into GitHub Online. So now I can continue as the account that I'm signed in as. And then I'm just going to press Control V to paste that code that it copied. And I'm going to hit continue. And then when I do that, it's going to ask us if we want to authorize Visual Code Studio. Visual Code Studio is the open source code editor that Cursor's built on. So this is fine. We're going to authorize that. And it says, congratulations, you're all set. So now when we go back into Cursor, it's got this thing at the top. And basically, it's asking us, do we want to publish it to a private repository named Volcano Dash or a public one? You could change the name here if you wanted. I'm just going to publish to a private repository. So I'm going to click that. And you see down here on the left, it says publishing to GitHub, uploading files. And this is going to take a minute because it's a lot of files that it has to upload. Okay, so it says successfully publish the Ashoka the Dev / Volcano Dash repository to GitHub. You can click this link to open it on GitHub so you can see that it was successful. And you can see all of our files here. You can add a README file. This is something you'd want to do if this was going to be like public or you wanted to keep your own notes for some reason. I'm not going to worry about that right now. And just so that you can see what it's done, if I go to my main page and I go to my repositories, you can see now that I have this Volcano Dash repository in my GitHub Online. If for some reason this isn't working for you, you may not have Git installed on your machine. So really fast, I just want to show you how to do that if you don't. So you can just go to Google and you can say download Git. And then you can just go to this downloads button and then you can download the correct one for your machine here and install it. All right, and just to show you really fast what GitHub does, I'm gonna open up my index.ts file and I'm just gonna add a new line of code. And I'm gonna say // testing 1, 2, 3. And I'm gonna do Control S to save it. And now if we go back over to this version control tab, you can see that I have a new change ready to commit. And if I click on that, you can see that it's showing the differences between what the file was before and what the file is after. And so all I have to do to commit this change is I can hit this plus to stage it. I give it a message that says testing, and I hit commit. And now it's locally saved, and then I'm going to sync the changes to get that saved on GitHub. So just to recap what we've done so far, we've done some basic planning. We've initialized the Hytopia project. We've set up our GitHub to where anytime we make changes, we can commit them so that we can reference them when we need them. And the next thing we're going to do is we are going to create a plan of action. So we have the basic overview of our game plan, right? But now we need to plan how our code is going to be structured and how we're going to go about making our game. And we're doing this to help ourselves, obviously, but this will also give the AI the best context possible to give us better results when we're prompting. And to do this, we're actually going to work with the AI by giving it our overview and asking it to help us plan. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to our volcano-root folder over here, and I'm going to hit this plus button next to the folder icon. So it's the second one right here. I'm going to hit new folder, and I'm just going to call it planning. And now in this planning folder, I'm going to have it highlighted, and I'm going to hit this plus button next to the first icon, which is a new file. And I'm going to call it gameoverview.txt, which stands for text file. And I'm going to hit enter. And basically in this file, I'm just going to give the AI information that it can use to help us plan. So I've said I'm making a Hytopia game named Volcano Dash. Here's a basic overview of how I want the game to work. And I'm just going to go copy that thing that I wrote before in Notion. And I'm going to paste it into this file. And I'm going to hit save. And now we're going to ask the AI for help. So if you don't have this box over here, remember you can always go to View, Appearance, Secondary Sidebar. And for this, we're going to go into Ask mode because we're just going to be chatting with the AI a little bit. So I say, please help me plan out my new game. Please reference, and I'm going to say at game-overview. You can see the file popped up here. This is the one that we just made, so I'm going to click that. And there's really two things we want it to help with. We want it to help us plan out our folder and file structure, and we want it to help us come up with a plan of action that we can have it use while it's building our game. So let's just start with the file structure. All right, so I said, first, I want you to help me plan the file structure. Please reference existing Hytopia projects such as High Grounds and Frontiers for ideas. Please use my game overview to see the types of things that will be in the game. So I think I said before that I was going to use ask mode for this, but I'm actually going to use agent mode for this so that I can use the MCP server. And instead of using auto mode, I'm going to use Claude Force on it, and I'm going to hit enter. So it says it's examining my game overview, and now it's going to look at existing Hytopia projects to understand best practices. And so looking through what it's done, it's got pretty close, but I can tell already that some things aren't quite what I'm going to be needing. This is going to be really specific for you and the game that you're making. For me, looking at this, I can tell that some of the entities that it's suggesting aren't things I'm going to actually need. So I'm going to correct the AI a little bit now and have it change its plan to fit my needs a little bit better. You're going to want to do the same thing if it's not quite suggesting what you want. Okay, so here are the corrections I'm making to the AI right now. I'm saying, please don't propose UI or asset-related files. We will use what we already have for that. It's proposing some weird UI structure that I don't want. Number 2 is, we do not need a lobby manager. It's made a lobby manager. It's explaining the lobby is just the default world. Both game modes will have separate entry points within the lobby. For instance, you will meet a join NPC to join the lava rising mode. You will talk to a timer NPC to start the time mode. And the untimed mode of the simple obby will just start when you cross the first checkpoint. The third point I'm telling it to correct is we do not need a platform entity. I don't need that in the game. And the fourth one is the player will just be named game player entity. They called it like volcano player entity or something. So I'm gonna hit enter to correct this, and we'll see what it comes up with on its second try. So now it's updated its to-do list, and it's saying it's gonna revise the file structure based on the user feedback. Let's see what it comes up with. Okay, so this is much better already. So it's done everything I asked it to do. The only thing that I'm concerned about is it's hard with the way this is currently structured to tell which files belong to which game mode. I'm gonna have it see if it can come up with a better way to manage that. Okay, this is great. The only thing I'm concerned about now is the file structure. It's hard to see which files belong to which game mode. Is there a better way to structure this or name the files that differentiates between the modes? And then the next thing I say is also, instead of calling them collectibles, let's call them power-ups. So it's going to reorganize again based on this new information. Okay, so this is a lot better. So now it's done some basic config files, some core files that apply to everything, but then it has a separate folder for the Obby and then another folder for the lava rising. It has all of the relevant files there. And so now I'm going to have it create a file with this information and put it into our planning folder. So I said, okay, this is perfect. Please create a file for this and put it in our @ and I'm going to say @ planning. And then our planning folder pops up. Folder. And I'm going to hit enter. And it's creating a new file called file structure plan. Okay, and let's see what it made. So we've got this new file called file structure plan. I'm going to click on it. This document outlines a file structure for the Volcano Dash game, organized by game mode for clear separation of concerns and easy development. And it's got, over down here, it talks about the design principles, the game mode selection, everything related to the Obby, everything related to the lava rising mode, shared functionality between the modes is the core folder. Okay, and this looks really good, so I'm going to say keep all. And so now that this is done, I'm going to go over to my GitHub and I'm going to say file structure plan complete. I'm going to stage all these changes by hitting the plus and I'm going to say commit. And then I'm going to sync the changes. That way we have that original file structure plan saved. Okay, so that's our file structure. It looks really good. And the next thing I'm going to have the AI do is come up with a plan of action for us. Okay, so I said, okay, perfect. Now please suggest a step-by-step plan of action for coding this game. Let's start with the simple Obby mode and complete that first, then do the lava rising mode. I'm going to hit enter. It's updated it to do, create a step-by-step development plan focused on simple Obby mode first. And it's now coming up with a multi-phase plan for us. And from what I can tell so far, it looks like this plan looks really good. So I'm saying, please create a file of this plan and put it in the @ planning folder. Okay, and it says it's created our development plan file. So let's take a look. Overview, this document outlines a step-by-step development plan for Volcano Dash, focusing on completing the simple Obby mode first and implementing the lava rising mode. Development strategy, phase 1, phase 2, and an approach section. Phase 1 goes through all of the phase 1 things that it told us up there. So I'm not going to read like every single detail right now, but definitely the first few steps look really good. And the point of this is that we now have a development plan that we can follow so that as we're working, we're not getting confused or we're not jumping around to different things. We're actually following a plan. We have something we can reference when we're prompting the AI to say, hey, this is the step we're working on. Please don't work ahead. Please don't do anything besides this. This is our task. So now that we've got a file structure plan, we have a development plan, the last thing I'm going to have the AI do in this planning phase is to come up with a cursor rule for itself to make sure it's actually referencing these files as it's working. So it says, would you like to start with step 1? And I said, not yet. First, please create a new rules file and I did @.cursor. And I'm referencing this .cursor folder. This is the cursor rules folder. So I'm saying create a new rules file in this folder for yourself to make sure that you always reference the file structure plan, reference the development plan, use Hytopia best practices, and create simple and elegant code with good comments. Okay, so we can see that it's added this new rules file. Let's take a look. And I'm just going to hit keep all so it's easier to look at. All right, so it did a pretty good job, but the AI gets a little overzealous sometimes. So I actually deleted a lot of the stuff it put in there. So whenever it makes your rules file, just go through and remove like all the extra stuff that you don't actually want. So for me, I just wanted to always reference these planning documents. I wanted to follow our file organization that we kind of plan for in the file structure plan. And then I just have this rule that says always reference Hytopia documentation when writing Hytopia specific code. And then I just have a few rules for how I want it to code, making sure it's writing simple, elegant, readable code, clear comments explaining complex logic, using descriptive variables and function names, and keeping functions focused and small. And that's good enough for now. We can always add to this later. So I'm going to hit save to save this. And I'm going to go over to my version control tab and I'm going to commit these new changes that we've made. So we made the development plan and the cursor rules. I'm going to stage them and I'm just going to say development plan and rules file. And I'm going to say commit and I'm going to sync. So now if we go to our GitHub, you will see we've got this Volcano Dash repository. If I open it up, You can see we have this planning folder now, and you can see we have these new files that we've created. So I know this was a lot of like boring prep work, but hopefully you're already starting to see how having a really solid plan before you start coding your game is going to help you approach it in a much more logical way. And also, by doing so, you'll have much better results with the AI when you're making changes. So now with all of that prep work done, we're actually ready to start coding our game, but we're gonna do that in the next video. So between now and then, I do have some recommendations for you, and they're the same as they were in the Getting Started guide, but I'm gonna keep reiterating this. Take an intro to JavaScript course. I promise you it will be worth it. It will not take a lot of time. Like I've said many times, I did the Intro to JavaScript course from Solo Learn. It's definitely worth it. Do it. Everything will make so much more sense once you do that. And then the other thing I highly, highly recommend is read through the dev.hytopia.com website. At least skim it. At least skim the sections and stuff, because knowing what Hytopia calls things, especially if you don't have any experience with game development, like I didn't have any before I started with Hytopia, reading the dev docs will help you so much when you're prompting. Like just knowing what an entity is and what a collider is and what all these different things are, just having that base level of knowledge will help you prompt a lot better, and you'll get way better results from the AI if your prompts are good. Thank you so much for watching this one. I hope it's been helpful. As always, if you have any questions, just drop them in the comments and I'll be sure to do my best to answer them. You can also join the Hytopia Discord if you run into any issues. And if you find this content helpful, be sure to subscribe. And if you do, I will see you in the next one.